In this video, I'll introduce 7 reasons leaders need to learn Robert's Rule of Order. You walk into a board meeting, a faculty meeting, or a high-stakes decision-making session. The agenda is packed, the room is buzzing, everyone's got an opinion. But how do you channel this cacophony of diverse viewpoints into actionable decisions? Robert's Rules of Order can help you in 7 ways. Structure in chaos, equal voice, transparency and accountability, leadership credibility, informed decisions, legal safeguards, and universal application. I'll discuss them one by one, but before that, let's first look at public bodies' adoption of Robert's Rules of Order. In the state of Georgia, public bodies like school boards and governing bodies of higher education often use Robert's Rules of Order or a similar parliamentarian procedure for conducting meetings, although this can vary by individual organization. Georgia's Open Meeting Act requires that meetings of public bodies to be open to the public and that an agenda be made available. However, the Act itself does not explicitly mandate the use of the Robert's Rules. Many school boards and other public bodies in Georgia adopt Robert's Rules through their own bylaws or policies to ensure a standardized, transparent, and democratic decision-making process. It's always advisable to check the specific bylaws or governing documents of a particular public body in Georgia to determine whether Robert's Rules have been adopted. Now, let's look at 7 reasons leaders need to learn Robert's Rules of Order. The first reason is that they provide a structure in chaos. Meetings can easily descend into an unproductive whirlwind of competing voices. With Robert's Rules, you have a standardized playbook to keep conversations focused and efficient. For example, you are leading an important meeting to decide the allocation of annual budgets for different programs. People are divided on this issue. Some advocate for increased funding for Program A. Others insist on channeling more money into Program B. And yet another group argues for Program C. The discussion starts to spiral, becoming a verbal tug of war with no structure to guide it. People start interrupting, the agenda is forgotten, and the meeting time is taken away. Does it sound familiar to you? With Robert's Rules of Order in your toolkit, you can avoid this chaotic spiral. You can start with a well-laid-out meeting agenda that everyone has agreed to, thereby setting the stage for a focused discussion. When the topic of Program A funding comes up, a member can make a formal motion. I move to allocate 40% of the budget to Program A. This sets a boundary for what is being discussed, avoiding digression into other topics. Once the motion is seconded, it opens the floor for debate. Robert's Rules dictate how long each person can speak and ensure that all sides of the issue are heard. If someone has a counterproposal, say, reducing the Program A budget to 35 and using the 5% for Program B, they can formally amend the motion. This keeps the discussion channeled through a structured pathway. After thorough debate and any necessary amendment, a vote is taken. The motion either passes or fails based on a predefined majority, thereby making the decision clear and democratic. By using Robert's Rules, you've transformed a chaotic, opinion-fleeing free-for-all into a structured, fair, and efficient decision-making process. And the best part, everyone leaves the meeting feeling that the process was fair, even if they did not agree with every outcome. The second reason is equal voice. Robert's Rules of Order can level the playing field and ensure that everyone gets a fair chance to voice their opinions. Have you ever been in a meeting where the loudest voices drown out the rest? Without any guiding structure, the meeting starts to tilt heavily in favor of more vocal members, drowning out the quieter or less assertive voices. The discussion turns one-sided, and decisions risk being made without broad representation. Here is where Robert's Rules of Order can act as an equalizer. With Robert's Rules, you have an established system for taking turns to speak. Once someone has made a motion, others need to be recognized by the chairperson to offer their comments. This prevents people from interrupting each other and ensures that everyone who wants to speak can do so. Robert's rules often set time limits for individual speakers during debate, ensuring that no one person dominates the discussion. This allows for a greater diversity of viewpoints to be heard. Robert's rules also suggest that debate should alternate between those in favor of and those against a motion. This promotes a balanced discussion where all perspectives have opportunities to be expressed in meetings. If someone monopolizes the conversation or breaks the rules of decorum, any member can call a point of order to bring the meeting back into alignment with Robert's rules, thereby ensuring fairness. Finally, when it comes to time to make a decision, each member gets one vote. Your voice counts as much as anyone else, regardless how eloquent or loud they are in the meeting. By using Robert's rules, the quieter voices get an equal chance to be heard. The more assertive voices are modulated, and everyone gets to contribute to a more democratic and inclusive decision-making process. So the next time you find yourself in a meeting where the discussion seems dominated by a vocal few, remember that Robert's rules are your ticket to an environment where everyone's voice has an equal weight. Third, Robert's Rules of Order can contribute to transparency and accountability. For example, you're in a meeting where the adoption of a new policy is on the agenda. The implications of the policy can be widespread. Understandably, different members have different vested interests and are watching the decision-making process very closely. Here is how Robert's rules can enhance transparency and accountability. When the subject of the new policy raises, a member cannot just say, "I think we should adopt the policy because of X, Y, and Z." Instead, someone has to make a formal motion. "I move to adopt the policy effective January 1st, 2024. This is a transparent action that makes it clear what is being considered. Once the motion is seconded, each member who wishes to speak, either for or against the motion, is given the floor in an orderly manner. This structured debate is formally documented in the meeting minutes, making it transparent and open for public review. This ensures that interested parties, such as stakeholders or the general public, can review the proceedings and understand the rationale behind decisions and how a decision is made. Suppose another member wants to tweak the policy proposal, perhaps by adopting the policy, but with modifications. They can make a formal amendment, which also gets debated and voted about. This shows that a collective decision-making body, such as a board or a committee, is accountable for considering multiple viewpoints and not just hastily rubber-stamping decisions. After sufficient debate, a vote is taken. Robert's rules dictate how this voting occurs, whether by voice, by roll call, or by ballot, each with its level of transparency and accountability. The results are documented and often made public, showing exactly how each member voted. The meeting minutes, which record all motions, amendments, debate, and votes, serve as a public record. This enables all interested parties to review the process, ensuring accountability. In this way, Robert's rules provide a systematic, traceable record of how decisions were made, who supported them, and why. This is very important in building trust between decision makers and the people they represent. Fourth, mastering Robert's rules of order can enhance your leadership credibility. For example, you're an administrator who needs to lead a faculty meeting about adopting a new grading policy. Faculty members are passionate about the topic as it directly impacts their day-to-day teaching and assessment methods. Here is how you can use Robert's Rule of Order to boost your leadership skills. Before the meeting, you review the agenda and familiarize yourself with potential motions and counter motions related to the grading policy. When the meeting begins, you are ready to guide the discussion efficiently. As the meeting progresses, you implement Robert's rules to make sure everyone gets an equal chance to voice their opinions. You handle motions, amendments, and voting procedures in a way that respects everyone's viewpoints. When debates heat up over whether the new policy should apply to all grade level or just high school, you deftly handle subsidiary motions to modify the main motion, keeping the discussion on track without letting it devolve into chaoses. As the meeting unfolds, one particular vocal member tries to dominate the conversation, advocating strongly for their viewpoint. You, as the administrator leading the meeting, recognize the importance of not favoring the loudest voice. Using Robert's rules, you tactfully intervene, stating that the floor is open for others to share their perspectives. You also ensure that every motion and its corresponding vote are clearly documented in the meeting minutes, reinforcing transparency and accountability. At the end, you summarize the decisions made, outline the next steps, and thank everyone for their contributions. Throughout the process, it may be tempting to express your individual preference on the new grading policy, especially if you have strong opinions about it. However, your role in this context as a presiding officer is to facilitate an open, fair discussion. If you are solely interested in pushing your own agenda and want the group to vote for your preferred option, you compromise the process of democratic decision-making. Steering the group toward your own preferred option without open discussion risks undermining the democratic process and your credibility as a leader. You may get your way in the short term by pushing your preferred option. The long-term health of the organization could suffer due to reduced morale, trust, and engagement from its members. If your primary interest is in securing approval for your own preferred option without consideration for the input of others, then the democratic group decision-making process does not serve your purpose. This is the reason why dictators and authoritarians deviate from the democratic decision-making process. In those governance models, the leader's word is final, and there is little to no room for collective decision-making or dissent. While this approach may achieve quick decisions, it often does so at the cost of inclusion, fairness, and long-term stability. It undermines trust and can lead to a culture of fear and silence, which goes against the values of democratic governance. Fifth, Robert's Rules of Order provides specific methods for amending motions that encourage detailed examination of each issue. This helps in making more informed and collectively agreed upon decisions. For example, one meeting agenda item is controversial. Let's say it's about adopting a policy. The meeting begins with a main motion to adopting the policy. With Robert's rules guiding the process, each member is given a specific amount of time to voice their views. This structured debate ensures that everyone has an opportunity to express their concerns or support. During the discussion, one member proposes an amendment to the main motion, suggesting that the policy be tested as a pilot program for 1 year before a full adoption. Robert's rules outline the process for discussing and voting on this amendment, which becomes a focus point for detailed examination. Specifically, one member says, I move to amend the main motion by adding that the new policy should be tested as a pilot program for 1 year before a full adoption. Another member needs to second the amendment for it to be discussed. Someone else says, I second the amendment. Once the amendment is seconded, the floor is open for debate on the amendment, not the main motion. During the debate, members can speak in favor of or against the amendment. They could discuss the benefits of testing a new policy through a pilot program or the downsides of extending the implementation timeline. If the discussion drags on, a member may call for a limitation of debate, either by setting a time limit or by calling for an immediate vote. After debate is closed, a vote is taken on the amendment alone. This could be a voice vote, a show of hands, or another voting method. If the amendment passes, the main motion is now amended, and the debate resumes on the amended main motion, now including the pilot program stipulation. If the amendment fails, debate resumes on the main motion as originally presented. After any further debate, a vote is taken on the main motion, either in its original form or as amended. By using structured debate and methods for amending motions, you ensure that each issue is carefully examined, leading to a more informed and mutually agreed upon outcomes. 6. Robert's Rules of Order provides legal safeguards. Decisions made in meetings could be legally challenged if proper procedures are not followed. Robert's rules serve as a safety net, providing legally recognized methods for decision-making. Robert's Rules of Order are not laws, but they are widely recognized as a standard for conducting meetings and making decisions in deliberative assemblies. Organizations often adopt Robert's Rule in their bylaws or constitution, which can give them a certain level of legal standing within that specific organization. If a dispute arises within our organization and it reaches the level of legal intervention, such as a lawsuit, courts may look at whether the organization followed its own rules for conducting meetings, including any stipulated adherence to Robert's Rules of Order. However, this tends to be relevant only if the organization has formally adopted Robert's rules as part of its governing documents. Although Robert's Rules of Order themselves are not legally binding, they can become so within the context of an organization that has formally adopted them. Therefore, they can serve as a legal safeguard to some extent when followed correctly. In general, if a decision is made in violation of an organization's bylaws or established rules of order, that decision could be deemed invalid or subject to challenge. Minor procedural errors may not be sufficient grounds for invalidating a decision, while more significant breaches are more likely to result in the decision being overturned. In some cases, the decision may be nullified or there is a process for rectifying the mistake. In other situations, particularly if no one challenges the irregularity, the decision may stand. In the United States, courts may look at a range of factors when evaluating whether a policy has discriminatory intent. Deviating from normal policymaking procedures could potentially be one of those factors. For example, if a policy was rushed through the legislative process without normal deliberation, or if established procedures were sidestepped, a court may consider this as evidence of discriminatory intent. If a committee or a board adopts a race-conscious policy, its decision-making process and the policy itself would be subject to legal scrutiny. Let's say the committee or the board deviates from its normal policymaking procedures by rushing the policy through without public comment, bypassing committee review, or not providing data to support the need for a race-conscious approach. A court could view these irregularities as one factor among many when evaluating whether the policy has a discriminatory intent. The deviation from normal procedures alone may not be sufficient for a court to determine discriminatory intent, but it could contribute to an overall impression that the committee or the board was motivated by factors other than those it publicly stated. This, in turn, could put the committee or the board at a disadvantage in proving that it had a compelling interest that was narrowly tailored. Seventh, Robert's Rule of Order are universally applicable. Whether you are a department chair, an assistant principal, a chair of a faculty senate committee, or a regional education task force, Robert's rules are ubiquitous. Learning them opens doors to effective leadership roles in multiple educational settings. So the next time you take your seat at the table, whether it's at a district boardroom or a university committee meeting, remember, mastering Robert's Rule of Order is more than just understanding a set of archaic protocols. It's about stepping into your role as a leader with confidence and assurance. It's about transforming your meetings into transparent and democratic arenas where everyone's voice counts. Most importantly, it's about shaping the future of education with clarity, intention, and democratic principles.